So really excited about this session today. It'll be high impact. It'll be, leading edge. It's going to give you a vision for where we all need to go moving forward the next 5 years to counteract all those competitive pressures that you're facing in your dealership today. So with that, I'd like to introduce Mr. Dale Pollak via video, the chairman and founder of vAuto. Welcome, Dale.
Hi, I'm Dale Pollak, and welcome to the NIADA convention. I apologize for not being here in person, but unfortunately my schedule would not permit it. I would like to spend the next few moments sharing my perspective with you about our used vehicle industry and a little bit in particular about your future as an independent dealer. I'm also going to introduce your next speaker, Todd Kinsley of vAuto's Genius Labs. Now, many of you may know me as the founder of vAuto and the creator of the velocity method of management. But I would also like you to know that I spent 13 years as a new car franchise dealer in Illinois, and in my earliest days, working with my father, who was an independent used car dealer in Indiana. Today, I'm dedicated to helping dealers like you succeed in what is unquestionably a difficult market. While there are many challenges in today's market, I think there are three primary challenges that confront all dealers, but in particular, independent dealers like you. The first of these challenges is, without a lot of trade-ins, how to find and buy for the right money the right used cars, the used cars that your market is demanding. And this is certainly a challenge that means that you have to spend a great deal more time, work harder, go further, and in many cases, purchase vehicles sight unseen, which undoubtedly introduces a lot of risk. Another such challenge is how to meet the demands of what is a highly margin-compressed environment. There's never been a time in our retail careers where you have to pay more money to acquire a good used vehicle at wholesale, nor has there ever been a time when you've endured greater retail pricing pressure in order to see your fair share of customers. And unfortunately, I don't perceive that challenge getting any better in the years to come, and perhaps even much more difficult. The third challenge is how to find the proper blend of business process and smart technology that allows you to achieve a level of efficiency that's required for prosperity. And it is exactly these challenges that has caused me to create the Genius Labs division of vAuto. At Genius Labs, we're charged with the mission of creating smart, low-cost, standalone solutions for everyday independent dealers like you. Now, the first of the Genius Labs product is one that many of you are already familiar with, and that is the award-winning Auction Genius. With a single touch and in a single instant, Auction Genius shows you all of the used vehicles that are right for you, where they can be purchased, for the right money, and, importantly, gives you every single bit of detailed information about that vehicle that allows you to purchase it with a minimal amount of risk, and in some cases, no risk at all. Another example of Genius Labs' smart, simple, and standalone solutions is AutoVisor. Nobody will purchase a used vehicle from you without satisfaction on at least 3 points. Is it the right vehicle, worthy of their purchase? Is your deal that you're offering fair? And is your dealership of the proper reputation to warrant their business? Imagine a solution that at a single touch will give you and your shoppers the right answer to each of these three critical questions 100% of the time. And there'll be many more such solutions to come from Genius Labs. But how we create these solutions is through the genius behind the Genius Labs, Todd Kinsley, who you'll hear from shortly. As you will soon learn, Todd has a very unique background. He has spent time as a successful independent dealer like you, and brought to that a deep understanding of technology. And that experience that he has that's common to all of us, along with his technology, allows him to have tremendous insights and understanding as to how to create that proper blend between business process and technology to create the efficiency that is absolutely essential to your continued profitability. But before I introduce Todd formally, I just want to share my personal perspective on the future of the independent dealer in America. And in a single word, I'm bullish. Why am I bullish? Well, because as I previously mentioned, one of the greatest pressures in our industry is the margin compression. And it is the large franchise dealer today that bears the burden of the costs associated with maintaining that franchise and their otherwise high-cost operation. It is you, the independent dealer, with a smaller cost structure, more nimble, more capable of responding, and importantly, focus primarily, if not exclusively, on your used car business that will allow you the opportunity to succeed in that very challenging environment. So I am betting on your success, the success of the independent dealer. And with that, I would like to introduce the genius of Genius Labs, Todd Kinsley. Todd, take it away.
Wow. What an introduction, Dale. I feel this overwhelming sort of sense of pressure now to say something really smart, something really intelligent, like if I could rattle off a really cool equation or something like that. But all I've got for you is a story. It was about 6 years ago, and my team and I had developed this drive, a passion, a calling, if you will, to build meaningful technology, meaningful software solutions that actually solved real problems for businesses. And we had become very interested in the auto industry for a number of reasons, but the reality is we were a technology company looking into the auto industry with the desire to and a very clear mission that developed to build meaningful technology, software that actually made a difference, solved real problems for dealers. This was what we were planning on doing. And unfortunately, we realized as we looked at the industry and saw that there were software companies, not unlike other industries, were just sort of building things and throwing it at dealers to see if it would work, see if it would solve some problem for them, see if they'd pay for it. We didn't want any part of that. We wanted to solve a real problem. And we realized we weren't really equipped to do that. If we wanted to build something meaningful, something that actually made a difference, solved a real problem, we would have to be willing to roll our sleeves up and get our hands dirty, to dive into the industry and learn it from the inside out before we could begin to build software that mattered. And so that's what we did. We put all product development, all software development on hold. Everyone in our company, including myself and our chief software architect, focused all of our energy, all of our resources, everything we had on building the most successful little used car operation we could. We went out and got the state license and showed up at the auction and said, how do we do this? We start buying and selling cars and focusing again on leveraging everything we had, just like you all do, to build the most successful used car operation we could. We knew that if we could really take that approach and if we could treat it as though that was our end game, that was why we existed, what we were in business for, that we would have to run up the same hills and over the same hurdles and run into the same walls that you all run into as you strive to build your successful businesses. And then, as we got into the industry and we learned it and we ran into those same challenges, maybe we could begin to build solutions that mattered, to build technology that actually helped you to overcome those problems. So that's what we set out to do. We decided to build a car dealership. And it was great timing, right? 2008. Good time to start a car dealership. So we jump in and we start running into all kinds of problems and challenges. And one of the biggest challenges was that we had to figure out which of the problems that we ran into were just because we didn't know what we were doing, and which of those problems were real problems that you all as real car guys and car girls face, right? So as we're running into these different challenges, we had to find dealers that we could connect with. So we joined up with CIADA in Colorado, and then that summer we went to Orlando, I think it was, and went to the NIADA and joined up there and started talking to other dealers saying, how do we do this better? How do we get better? And what are the problems you all are facing? So that we could begin to understand and make a differentiation between the problems we were creating for ourselves and the problems that were real problems for used car dealers across the country. Now, one of the things that stood out to us and that was echoed back to us by our dealer friends that we made along the way was that the margins seemed really small. The margins were much smaller than we expected. And at first, of course, we thought, well, this is because we don't know what we're doing. And we got a little better and we started improving our game, and the margins were still really small. And so the challenge became, how do you build a successful business model out of this? How can we become a profitable used car dealership with these margins? How do we sell enough of these cars? How do we do it, right? And as we talked to other dealers and found out that they were facing the same challenge of small margins, we found out that it was even worse than that. The margins were not only small, but they were shrinking. And that over time, those margins had been compressed and were shrinking. And now we said, what a challenge. What a frustration. What a pain. And as we lived this out in our dealership every day, we felt that pain. And we realized that there was a problem to solve. There was something that we could try to build a strategy around and begin to be helpful with and build technology for. And so before we dig into that, I just want to share with you kind of my summary, a little illustration of a day in the life of a dealer sometime over the last 5 years. So technology that matters, a day in the life of a dealer. This is kind of how we felt for those years we spent buying and selling used cars.
3PO?
We've had some problems.
Will you shut up and listen to me? Shut down all the garbage masters on the detention level, will you? Do you copy? Shut down all the garbage masters on the detention level. Shut down all the garbage masters on the detention level.
No! Shut them all down! Hurry!
So this was what we experienced, and I know that you probably have seen this scene before. Maybe you can remember when you watched Star Wars for the first time and the stress in C-3PO's voice. What do we do? They're going to be crushed alive. And that's how we felt, and I know many of you can relate to that feeling as we look at this problem, this challenge, this frustration that we feel called margin compression, right? The walls are closing in. They're crushing in on our margin. And it's been happening for some time, and it's a threat, right? And so we feel a little bit like the Star Wars crew in this trash compactor, and the walls are closing in on it, closing in on us, closing in on our margin. So the problem, margin compression, that's what we're going to talk about for the next several minutes here together. Now let's take a look again, and I just want to, let's talk about, because it may be painfully obvious to all of you, but just so we've said it, what are those two walls that are closing in on us? What is causing the margin compression that we all feel, right? So let's take a look. On one side, we have wholesale cost, right? The rising cost of wholesale. And Dale mentioned it in his little introduction. We're paying more today than ever before for a good car at the auction, right? We've got fees and all those things associated, and the competition is tremendous, and we're in many cases having to reach further than ever before and pay more transportation, and the cost of a good wholesale car is going up. And that wall is closing in on us, right? And on the other side, we have this challenge with our retail pricing, because we don't price our cars just the same today as we did 10 years ago, do we? Things are different. The way consumers shop is different. And you've heard that all before. I don't need to dig into that. You all are smart and you're in the business. You know what's going on, right? So with regard to retail pricing, we're having to more and more price our vehicles to the market. We didn't used to have to do that because everybody didn't know everything, right? But now, in order to get eyeballs on our website and feet on our lot, we have to pay very close attention to the price we're putting on those vehicles. And so we're pricing our cars more competitively than ever before. Now, maybe you've got some unique situation, some deal where you're not having to deal with that, but for the most part, what I've seen is that dealers across the country, whether you're an independent dealer or a franchise dealer, when it comes to a used car, you're having to price your vehicles aggressively. And the big challenge there is the culture didn't change with us. They didn't say, oh, we're going to make it more competitive. You have to list your cars more competitively, and so we don't need a discount. They still want to negotiate, and we still believe in negotiation, and our staff, our salespeople still negotiate, and we still give discounts. So we're pricing our cars more than fair and then discounting it from there. And the walls are closing in on our margin. We're being crushed, right? You guys hear me? So we did what any good technology guys would do. We jumped in the trash compactor with you, and we said, what can we do? How can we help? What's the strategy? And so, the first thought was, well, look at Han Solo in this picture. I guess my slide's not up there. He's holding up like some big robot leg, right? And trying to like put it between these two walls and hold back the walls that are closing in. And we didn't find any luck there. So we said, let's go to one side. Let's go to one wall first. Let's go to the wholesale side. And let's figure out what's the strategy, what's the philosophy of how we can slow this wall down. And then we built some technology. You all heard about it. It's Auction Genius. We built this tool that really helps improve your ability to find and buy the right cars at the right price, improves the game for you. And we launched that solution. We took it and we had our little 10x10 booth at NIADA in 2012, February 2012. So just a little over a year ago, we launched this product, Auction Genius. And it was really solving a problem, so it starts flying off the shelves, and within a matter of a couple months, vAuto, Auto Trader said, we love what you're doing. We see that it's solving a problem. We want it. And so they bought our company, which did two really cool things. One, it allowed us to very quickly get Auction Genius into the hands of thousands of dealers across the country over the last year. But more importantly, it allowed my team to go jump back in the trash compactor because there's still another wall that's closing in, right? We've got the retail side. What can we do about that? What's the strategy? What's the philosophy? And then how can we build some technology that you all can leverage to help you slow down that wall? So one thing I want to say before we move on, and I'll probably say this a couple times today, and I want you to hear me say this. It's the software guy, the technology guy up here standing here telling you it's not all about the software. It's not all about the technology. You see, if you don't have a strategy, if you haven't looked intensely at the problem and asked yourself, how do we solve this problem? You guys are you're a bunch of smart business leaders. You can look at this problem, don't ignore it, look at it and say, how can we stop these walls? If you've developed a strategy and a philosophy, then you might know what software to look for, and you might know how to use it, and you might actually put it into practice. See, it's just a tool that you can leverage to accomplish your mission, but you got to know what's your strategy, what's your mission, okay? So we're going to come back to that, and I want to share with you our approach as we ran into these problems, as we went over and focused on the wholesale side of things, and the strategy that we developed. And maybe it resonates with you, and maybe it becomes a part of your strategy, and then I'll show you the technology we built to leverage to help us accomplish that, okay? So first of all, we had to ask ourselves, well, what is making that wall move? The wholesale wall's closing in on us, what's making it move? Any ideas? Say that again? Production? Poor supply, inventory? These are all the things we found. So the first two are connected. And with a small margin, there's kind of this perpetuating small margin, right? because we have to turn our inventory more quickly than ever before in order to make our business profitable. And if we have to turn our inventory more quickly, what's that mean? We have to buy more cars than ever before, right? And if we're buying more cars, it increases the demand and drives the margin down even more, right? So the second one I already mentioned, the expected margins are smaller, right? What we expect to get out of our used cars as our gross margin is a little bit smaller. Again, causing those turn times to go up, right? And finally, available inventory has dwindled. Now, this last one, if you're following the news, which I know you guys are, and if you're looking at the industry and asking these questions, you may start to think, well, hey, the inventory's coming back, we're all off the hook. Is it? Maybe a little bit. Maybe it will. I believe it will, and it won't be that long before it does. But ask yourself this question. What happened over the last 5 to 10 years as things got really challenging, as the heat turned up, as it got really difficult to find and buy the right cars? Unfortunately, some of your buddies aren't here anymore. Some of the dealers across the country who maybe weren't running very efficiently had to close their doors. So we lost some inefficient dealers, and those who survived got better. And a whole bunch of OEMs, a whole bunch of franchise dealers got involved and said, we can make money on the used car business. We've got to figure out how to do this. And they came to the game with tools that work. And they made it more and more challenging. So even as the supply comes back, you're competing against people who have improved their game. And the challenge continues. Okay, so this is what we looked at, the challenge that we saw, the things that are making the wall move. So what's that mean for you? Real quick, faster turn obviously means you got to buy more cars than ever before. Smaller margin means you've got to make fewer mistakes. When you used to go to the auction and you knew you had this big fat margin you were chasing after when you sold that car, if you made a little mistake, you could make up for it. Right? You bought a car and you didn't read the CARFAX ahead of time. You later found out it had a bad CARFAX. You could make up for that. You're going to lose a little bit of your margin, but today, with those smaller margins, you make a little mistake like that and you're underwater. Right? So we got to make fewer mistakes. And then less inventory obviously means we have fewer options. So let's boil that all up and put it together and just summarize what's this mean for you. Your job today as a dealer, as a buyer, is to buy more cars than ever before with a smaller margin for error and fewer cars to choose from. And the wall is closing in, right? It's the challenge we face. Okay, so what do we do about it? I want to share with you, as we approached this and started to ask these questions, what was our strategy? What was our philosophy? So I'm going to share with you 4 keys to better buying. And this is from the perspective of technology guys who tried to turn themselves into car guys, okay? So it might be helpful. It's a little bit different perspective. So first of all, reach. We looked at the problem and we said, we can't keep trying to buy the cars in Denver. We were running our shop just north of Denver. There's not enough to choose from. We always end up just taking home something that's not good enough. Right? So we had to figure out how to expand our reach, how to get access to more cars. And if we got access to more cars, we had to improve our evaluation efficiency. Because if you got hundreds of cars and you turn it into thousands of cars, you got to be able to analyze all of those cars very quickly. I want to talk to you a little bit about how we approach that. And then technology. There is an overwhelming resistance to technology in this space. Maybe that's a shock to some of you. But as we talked to dealers about technology, there was this sense of, no, I don't need that. And it was as though you're running around with pagers, right? Oh, no, I got everything I need right here. It's not an efficient tool anymore. You can't make it today in business running your business from a pager, okay? For those of you who have pagers, we can talk afterwards. And so if you put an iPhone in your pocket but you don't know how to use it and you don't learn it, dig in and understand it, it's the same thing. It's just a fancy pager. So learning to embrace the technology landscape that's out there Decide that you're going to win in this industry, and you're going to do it by knowing the landscape. Every hill and valley, every nook and cranny, you know it and you know how to leverage it. Those are the guys who are going to be successful in any business, right? So the challenge of technology. How are you going to leverage technology? And then finally, risk management. Because yes, there are risks. We hear this all the time when we talk about using technology in the auto industry, but I can't do that because every time I do, I get screwed. Well, we'll talk a little bit about risk management. Let's dive into those. Reach. I'm going to challenge you to dramatically expand your reach by mastering more buying channels. So I mentioned we were buying in Denver, and we realized that through Manheim Simulcast and OVE and ADESA and LiveBlock and Smart Auction that we had tools that gave us access to a sea of inventory across the country. And all our dealer buddies were saying there's no cars to choose from. And we said, but you can get online. And there's a sea of inventory there. But for us, we had the same experience that I know many of you have had where we made it from the pool or stream in our backyard out to that sea of inventory. And it was over, I have this image of us sort of like standing on the beach at the ocean. And we look down at our hand and we've got a fly rod from Colorado. And so there was this challenge of, okay, well, we got access to all this inventory, but what do we do with it, right? So I want to challenge you to look at how can you expand your reach. There are all kinds of tools available to you to get out there and find the inventory that's available. We had developed this theory that there's a good deal going on somewhere out there in the country at any given moment, and I'm just not there to take advantage of it. There are good buys, but you've got to expand your reach. You've got to figure out how to throw a net instead of using that little fly rod, okay? But what that means is we've got to figure out how to improve our efficiency, because you're used to dealing with a couple hundred cars in your backyard, and now you've got thousands. And we recognized as we started to play around with those tools that it took us 7 to 10 minutes to evaluate each car. By the time we looked at a condition report and a history report, because our customers were going to care what CARFAX said, and so we evaluated the condition of the car, we pulled the history report from somewhere, we looked at a couple book values, we did some retail comparisons, and we were nuts about this. We would compare to every vehicle listed in our area, every vehicle listed on eBay to try to figure out how are we going to be able to be competitive when we list this car on the retail side. So this is all part of our research on the buying side, right? Book values and MMR transactions, trying to understand, is this the right car for us to buy and how much should we pay for it? It took us 7 to 10 minutes, right? And if you multiply that across a couple hundred cars, that's kind of painful. But if you multiply it across thousands, it's next to impossible. We couldn't do it every day. So we had to figure out how do we improve our efficiency on evaluation so that we could sift through those cars and find the good ones. And it just stands to reason, right? If you pick the best 10 cars out of 100 cars, they're going to perform nowhere near as well as the best 10 out of 1,000 or 5,000. Right? So the challenge is to expand your reach and improve your efficiency so that you can actually sift through the sea of inventory that's available to you and find those unique good buys. And then technology. And I probably already hit you hard enough with this, but embrace that new landscape and leverage technology to improve your odds. Again, if you've got the strategy, expand your reach, improve your efficiency, then you can begin to leverage the tools that are available to you to do it well. Then technology matters. You find the very best of the tools available to you, you put them all together, and in our case, we built something that I'll share with you in a little bit, but you build technology that you can leverage to improve your odds. And finally, risk management. Mitigate your risks by understanding them and doing all your homework. So the first part of that, understanding them. I'm not going to tell you that there are no risks. You know that. If you're going to buy vehicles online, you're going to use some of the tools available to buy cars sight unseen, far away from you. There are some risks. But the rewards far outweigh the risks. We did it for a couple years. We just did it day in and day out. We bought everything we could buy online. That's where we bought all our cars. And yes, we did get screwed from time to time. There were times when the vehicle would show up and it wasn't quite what we thought it was. It wasn't what the condition report said, right? And that's the fear we all have when it comes to doing things this way, when it comes to leveraging some of these new technologies. But we found that if we understood them, we called it what it was, didn't argue that it doesn't exist, but said, okay, there are some risks and there are some rewards. Let's weigh those together. Don't just weigh the risk and not weigh the rewards. We bought some great cars, and we were buying cars very efficiently and effectively across the country, and the dealers in our area were buying their cars from us. The benefit far outweighed that risk. And then doing all your homework, make sure you read it all. Read the condition report, read the history report. You've got to pull all that stuff together and back to efficiency. You've got to have an efficient way to do that. Okay, so you put all those things together, expand your reach, improve your efficiency, leverage technology, and manage your risks. And what do you have? A strategy, right? So we built this strategy, and we understood what we needed to do, and then we started to envision a way to put it all together, a tool, right, that we needed. And for us, we could build it. For you, you can just buy it from me. Or maybe you have the ability to build it yourself as well. I don't care. It's not about the software. It's about the strategy. And it's about figuring out how you can win, right? So we began to envision, with this challenge I just described to you, what if we could have like a heads-up display? And we could use that term now because we were car guys. You could have this heads-up display that you could take with you to any auction site, any listing site, anywhere there were used cars, used inventory available to you. And as you looked at those cars, you would instantly have everything you needed to make an intelligent decision about that car, whatever that may be. You would have retail comparisons. You would have an instant view of the CARFAX and the history report. I'm sorry, those are the same things. The condition report, MMR transactions, MMR values, book values. Maybe you're a vAuto user, you'd have access to that data. Whatever it is you use to make an intelligent decision about cars, you would instantly have access to that. So as you took this heads-up display and looked at cars, whether it's on simulcast or anywhere else, everything would automatically display for you. So I just want to share real quickly what that looks like, how we can help, the technology we built that if you have the right strategy and the right approach can be leveraged to help you. So this is Auction Genius. That's probably hard to see from where you're at, but in the top left corner there, you see Mannheim. And this could be any auction because we work with ADESA and Smart Auction and OpenLane, OVE, Simulcast, wherever you're going. You can put this on the page and then you can surround it with all of the pieces of information that you need. And it's all customizable, so whatever you want to see on the screen, it all just syncs together so you have access to all that at once. So if you watch this, what I'm going to do is just go in and do a search just like I normally would. We didn't want to have to change the way we did things or the way you do things. You just do a search. The vehicles are going to come up just like they would any other time. And if you'll notice, these little light bulbs appear next to each of the vehicles. You click the light bulb. Next video. And everything instantly appears. Then you can sort through those reports. If you look at the bottom right, you've got all your values, all the nuggets of information that help you make a quick decision about a car. Is it a clean CARFAX? What's the condition report say? What are the values? How does it compare to the market? What's the supply and demand on this car? And over to the right, you've got a whole bunch of those full reports. They're all just there stacked up like a deck of cards. And as you click through that little chart down on the left, each of those other pieces of information come to the top fully populated. Okay? So the idea is wherever you go, wherever there's a list of cars, you can very quickly have access to all the information you would typically spend those 7 to 10 minutes going out and gathering up, and you have access to it at the moment, right? So we've streamlined that process, helping us to accomplish our strategy. Let me just put this in a simulcast setting, okay? Some of you are probably familiar with simulcast. You all know what it is. Some of you use it, some of you don't. In simulcast, we take the same concept and we just remove the light bulbs. So whatever vehicle you're looking at, you've got all the same information. You see on the bottom left there, you've got all the book values and instant view of CARFAX and MMR, and you can click through those and get more information on each of those pieces. Okay? So you got all that information on every car, and then when a new car rolls up on the block, we just instantly change all of that so that you have the view of whatever information you need to support you on whatever car is on the block. So as that car rolled up, I have all that information. That's the concept. So then we took it a little bit further and we said, well, we want to be in 8, 9, 10, 12 lanes at a time because there's great buys happening all over the place. I wanted to be able to jump into any lane of any auction across the country and have access to everything I needed to make an intelligent decision about those cars. So we said, what about helping you to manage multiple lanes? So what we do is we just open them in multiple tabs for you. You can see up here on the top. And we label those tabs. So you know what each tab represents, what lane of what auction, and what run they're on without even clicking into it. So you know exactly where they're at in the auction, right? And if you click into it, you already have all the homework done. You already have all the information you need to make an intelligent decision about that car. And then we added to that the ability to give you some alarms to help you find the inventory you're looking for. Because oftentimes for me, when I was running this little independent dealership, I'm desking a deal, or I'm selling a car, or I'm talking to somebody on the phone while I've got all these auctions running, right? And so we said, let's watch for anything that's on your watch book or your workbook, or let's give you the ability to just punch in vehicles you generally are interested in. Let's give you the ability to set an alarm that'll go off if the vehicle is asking for bids below MMR by whatever percentage you think is necessary, so that now alarms are going off when the cars you should be interested in are available, right? Lights up the tab. You click on the tab, you got all your homework, and you move forward. So picture this heads-up display with live block on OVE, on ADESA.com, which is open lane now, on Smart Auction. So we just took the same concept and said, let's partner with everybody, let's put it out there so that as you shop for inventory the way you normally do, you instantly have access to everything you need to make a quick, intelligent decision about that car. Okay, so let's look back at those keys, that strategy we had, and ask ourselves, how does this technology help us to accomplish our strategy? Does it expand our reach? It gives us the ability to play anywhere. We can have access to that sea of inventory, and we have a little bit better tool than that fly rod from Colorado we brought with us, right? Does it improve our efficiency? We got this into the hands of hundreds of dealers initially just as a test, and they overwhelmingly came back and said, it's crazy, I can evaluate more than 10 times as many cars in the same amount of time using this tool. And again, it just stands to reason, if I'm choosing my vehicles for my inventory from a pool that's 10 times bigger, and I have a tool that helps me pull the very best out of 1,000 cars instead of 100, or out of 10,000 instead of 1,000, I significantly improved my odds. And our study came back and showed that they were able to improve their profit per vehicle consistently because they were picking better cars. They were bringing home better cars. Did they make some mistakes? Yes. Were the risks worth it? Yes. Did we leverage technology? Everything we could. We pulled everything available online into one tool. So we're leveraging the best of the technology available to us. And do we manage the risks? Well, we help you do all your homework, but the other part of that is still up to you. You've got to understand them. Go build relationships with the right people at Manheim or at ADESA, wherever you're buying cars, so that when you make a mistake, when they make a mistake and send home a car that wasn't quite what was described, you know who to call, and they know who you are, and they know you're the guy trying to buy online. And they take care of you, I promise you, that was our experience. And Manheim and ADESA, I work with the guys at the top, it is their model now to support that. So if you're talking to somebody who says they won't help you, and you're not lying about what happened, sometimes I was tempted when I made my own stupid mistake and bought a two-wheel drive truck instead of a four-wheel drive truck, and I was blaming it on simulcast. If it's their fault, they'll take care of you. That's their goal. They want to make sure that you're able to take advantage of those things and to buy online. So you roll all those things together, and we begin to help you with some technology, but only if you understand the problem and have a strategy that makes sense. So as I mentioned before, once we were able to get this technology off the ground and vAuto Auto Trader came along and bought our company, it gave us the ability to go jump back into that trash compactor and look again at the other wall. So we talked about on the wholesale side, 4 keys to better buying, 4 things you could do to build a strategy And my goal, again, is just to challenge you, if nothing else, forget about the software, to challenge you to look at the problem and develop a strategy. Don't ignore it. Don't pretend it doesn't exist. Don't just hope it'll go away. Use what God gave you and think about it and figure it out, right? And take advantage of all the resources available to you. So what it allowed us to do is to jump back into that trash compactor and go look at that other wall and come over there to the retail side and say, what is going on over here? What's the challenge? How can we help? What's the strategy? And then is there anything we can do with technology that can help dealers across the country to slow down or stop this wall? We felt we had built like a doorstop on the wholesale side that we could kick under that wall and hold it back. Maybe even push it back a little further, right? And now we wanted to do the same on the wholesale side. And so for the last year, we've spent time, Dale, Pollak, and I, now that we're in the same boat together, trying to study and understand what can we do to help? What is the right strategy? How do we improve your ability to hold on to gross? So let's talk about the retail wall. What's making it move? We've already touched on several things. A growing need to price to the market. If you're resisting this, maybe you've got some unique way around it, great. Share it with some other guys so they can resist it as well, right? But we are having to price our cars more and more to the market, right? What that means is we have to price competitively because we know what your potential customers are doing. They're looking for that specific car, and then they're sorting it by what? Price. They want to look for the features. They want it to be a shiny black one with nav, but they're still sorting by price, okay? And so we're having to price our vehicles to the market. And then we still have this perpetuating culture of discounting. The culture didn't just change for us. They still expect a discount. And then I also think sometimes in our dealerships we're focusing on the wrong metrics because they're the metrics that worked before. But now we've got to turn our inventory more quickly, so we've got to measure turn time more closely. And I also think with regard to our sales team, we have to get them to embrace another piece because they're all about volume typically. Got to move the metal. Where'd that phrase come from? Because we want volume, right? How do we get them to also think about low price variance? Because that matters now, right? Not just how much gross. We'll talk a little bit more about this, but the sales guy doesn't really control how much gross you get. He controls how much money he gives away, right? So low price variance is a metric we want to focus on. So a couple things making the wall move. Now let's talk about what this means for you. Price to market means you're already priced very aggressively, and I would say you're priced right where you should be if you're pricing to market, right? And I don't mean that you're the number one car, but you're paying attention to what everyone else around you is priced like, and you're priced in such a way that you're going to attract the right customers, okay? So you're already priced right. The price of the car that you put on, if you've done the research and you paid attention and you had a strategy around your pricing, is right. So you're priced aggressively. And then if you're affected by this discount culture, you're selling below market because you're already priced right, and then we're still discounting. Now maybe some of you have adopted sort of this one price philosophy. I'm not necessarily preaching that. That's another way to solve the problem. But if you're not going to go to one price, you still have to pay attention to it. And you should recognize what's making that wall move is this culture of discounting when we've already priced our car right to begin with. The wrong metrics means sometimes your sales team is selling against you. They're going for the volume. They're selling every car they can. And they're really good. And sometimes they're so good that they convince you or the desk manager or whatever your process is to lower the price so we can get the car out the door. And you needed to hold on to gross. And if they did their job and presented the car right and presented the evidence, you would have, right? So, same format. I want to share with you the strategy that we came up with, okay? 4 keys to holding gross. What can you do to improve your dealership's ability to hold on to that gross? We're going to talk a little bit about belief. What does your staff and the community around you believe about your pricing? Evidence. How are you gathering and using the evidence to support the value of your vehicles? We're going to talk about culture. This one's really interesting to me. What is the culture in your dealership on your sales staff around holding gross or volume or gross profit? What is the culture on your sales team. And ultimately, compensation. And I want to challenge you because I think this is the first one and the easy one, the one we tend to want to gravitate to first. If you change the way you pay the sales guy, you'll change his activity. We all know that. But let's not jump to that. Let's build a full strategy around how we can improve our ability to hold on to gross. So belief. I want to challenge you to give your staff a reason to believe in your offer. Now I say that because I think we have a belief issue. So let's ask ourselves, what do you think your staff, maybe you, your management, and your salespeople believe about the pricing on your cars? What do you believe about it? Okay? And then let's even go beyond that. What does the community around you believe about your pricing? And I would challenge you that maybe even you and your managers and your sales team and certainly the culture around you does not believe that the price on the sticker or the price you have online is really the price. Do they? They believe that there's the price you have listed and then some range of acceptable pricing below that. Don't they? Let's just look at what our culture believes about pricing. Check this out. Oh, bad use of technology. There we go.
Is the price? Yes, I will stand firm on it. Thank you, Bruce. Bye-bye.
Dad, aren't you going to get ready?
Yes, I am ready. Why are you dressed like that? I'm dressed like this because when you go in to negotiate the price of a car, you can't go in looking like you have a lot of money.
But the price of the car is already on the sticker, right?
That's the suggested retail price. Now, I'm going to go in and negotiate with the salesman on what will be the actual price.
Well, how do you know what price to ask for?
I talked to Dr. Bruce Bolden, who knows all about cars and also happens to be cheap.
Okay.
All right.
Now, is there anything I can do to help?
Yes, you can not let anyone know that I am a doctor.
Okay.
If they find out that I'm a doctor, then the man will lose all flexibility in determining the price.
Okay, Mr. Huxtable.
Mm-hmm.
Am I still your son?
No. You will always be my son.
Thanks, Dad.
Yeah, will I still be your father?
No.
So that made me want to go look up and watch all the Cosby episodes. I forgot what a great show that is. But let's ask ourselves, why would they make a sitcom episode about this used car buying process? Right? Why is that funny? It's probably not to some of us, right? In some ways. It's funny because it's real, and that's really why it's funny to everybody else too. Because it's kind of weird. It's a little bit awkward. If you look at the rest of our culture, we generally are a bunch of people here in the U.S. that do not negotiate on prices, right? When we go to Walmart, or if you're an upscale person and you shop at Target, you generally don't negotiate on the prices. Although I realize I'm talking to a room full of car guys and car girls, and some of you probably do. And I get flack for that because I try that often and my wife thinks it's silly. But hey, they sometimes will lower their price. But generally, our culture does not support that. For the most part, we go out and we pay what's on the sticker, except for when you're buying a used car. Because we've created this subculture in the auto industry around negotiation. We don't believe that the price is the price because somewhere along the way, our dad sat us down and said, son or daughter, the price on the sticker, the price on the website, the price in the newspaper is not really the price. That's the suggested retail price. We'll find the real price. I'll show you how. Put your sweatpants on and your funny hat and we'll go in and negotiate a car deal. Right? That's become part of our culture. That's what the people around you, even though the Cosby episode that we just watched aired a long time ago, this culture is still there. That's what the people in your community think they have to do to feel good about the car they bought, right? And that's not the problem. The problem is your salespeople think that. Your management team thinks that. Maybe even you think that. And it wouldn't be that big of a deal, this belief issue we have, if we hadn't changed the way we price our cars. But we have to now to get anyone to show up in the first place. What a challenge, right? So we have a belief issue. And you all can nod your head and say, yes, that's true, but I haven't told you what we do about it. What do we do? If we acknowledge we have this belief problem on our staff, what do we do about it? What if you could involve your sales team, your staff in the pricing process? Some of you are looking at me like I'm crazy, and I agree. That probably just isn't going to work, right? Too many cooks in the kitchen. You can't sit and have a meeting about every car and determine the price. Okay, so what if you at least exposed them to your strategy, right? You're gathering up evidence. By the way, this assumes that you actually have a pricing strategy, right? That you are paying attention to the evidence that determines what that price should be set at. Because that's how we do it today, okay? If you don't have a pricing strategy, whole nother session. There's a special class for you. If you have a pricing strategy, you're probably gathering up some evidence, some information that helps determine where you're pricing your car so that you can get the maximum number of eyeballs and foot traffic in your dealership. And what if you could share that strategy, that process, that information with your staff? You've done the work, if you have this strategy. You've gathered up the wholesale value information, the retail value information, the retail comps. You know the condition of the car. You know what the CARFAX says. You know what everyone in your neighborhood is priced at with similar cars. And you specifically picked that price because it would get the car sold because it's the right price. What if you shared that process and that information with your team so that they could see what you see? We've priced our cars right, or people wouldn't be showing up. What if they believed in your pricing? So give your staff a reason to believe in your pricing by exposing them to that strategy, to that supporting evidence. You got to find a way to do that. I'm not suggesting you have a pricing meeting every day, but figure out some tool, something you can give them that exposes them to all the evidence that you've put together to conclude the right price on that car. Okay? That leads us right into evidence. Okay? This is about your pricing strategy. You gathered up the evidence to determine what you would pay for the car at wholesale, and then you probably spent some time looking at that evidence to determine the right price on the car. And now maybe you've taken the step, as I suggested, to package that evidence in such a way that you can give it to your staff so that they can believe in your pricing. What if you could take that one step further? Use the evidence that supports your value to replace negotiation with documentation. Package that same information in a way that it's presentable to your customer. Now, I know that many of you are doing this in a way already, right? Maybe you have an evidence file or an evidence jacket that you pull out on that car that's got the CARFAX and it's got some book values and things like that that you've looked up and put in there. Maybe you even printed out some comps, or you do that when a potential buyer is in your showroom or on your lot. I was doing that. We were spending a lot of time to build all of our presentations on our website and on AutoTrader and Cars.com to walk people through the evidence that we had spent our time to gather up. So you probably get that. Again, the point, use the evidence that supports your value to replace negotiation with documentation. And so if you're already doing that, great. If you're not, figure out a way. It might take some work. It might take using your brain to figure out, how do I present this information? How do I package it in a special way for that customer? The goal here is to make the case. Dale Pollak mentioned it before. Why would you buy this car? So we want to bring in all the information we can from third parties, not just me, the sales guy, that say that this is the right car to buy. Look, it's got all the right features. Here's some professional reviews on this car. Here's what everyone's saying about why you should buy this car. And then why should I pay this price? Here's all the information. We pulled the book value information for you. We pulled all the comps from our neighbors, and there are a few priced cheaper, but do you really want a pink one? Do you want the yellow one? Maybe it's a black one and yours is gray. But you can explain why they already looked at it, so if you share it with them, it builds that trust, right? But here's the retail comps in our area. Maybe you don't want to share those, but it's your choice. But find a way to put all that information. Here's the history, here's the condition, here's why you'd buy this car. And then finally, why would you buy from us? Here's some reviews on our dealership. Here's what other people say after they've bought from us. It's a great experience. We put a lot in. Here's some special things we do for all of our customers. So you've put together the evidence like a good attorney. You've packaged it in a way that you're just presenting the evidence. Here's all the third-party information that says why you should buy this car, why you should pay this price, and why you should buy it from us. Do you have any questions? Right? And now, if you imagine some great little tool that puts all that together for you, you might be able to have confidence in that new sales guy you hired. You know the one. He's got a funny mustache. He showed up the first day with a weird t-shirt on, and he smells kind of funny, and you're kind of going, gosh, is he going to be able to sell a car like I do? Is he going to be able to make the case for my customers? Well, if you gave him the right tool and all he's got to do is walk people through the evidence, it might help build your confidence in his ability to replace negotiation with documentation, to make the case for the value of that car and close the deal at the price on the window, right? So evidence. Now, this is where we felt was an opportunity, again, within this strategy, to build some technology that we could leverage, that dealers could leverage, to help put this strategy into play, right? And technology really is all just about simplifying processes, right? You're already doing the work to go gather all that information, and maybe some of you are putting that on your website, putting it up on cars.com or AutoTrader. We just decided, what if we could automate that for you? We're part of vAuto. We have access to all that data. We can just pull it all in for every piece of inventory on your lot. You turn on this system, and automatically you have this digital evidence file built for you very robustly for every one of your cars. And it does exactly what I described. It gathers up all the information about that vehicle. It writes for you a very nice little description of the vehicle. It pulls in reviews from experts, making the case for why would you buy this car? What are the features? What are the benefits of this car? It's all just automatically put together for you. And then it does that in another section. It looks at the deal, and it automatically pulls in the book values and retail comparisons into a section that helps explain why you're priced the way you're priced. And then finally another section that says, why would you buy from us? And it pulls in Dealer Rater or other reviews as you choose to help explain the story of why it's good to buy from your dealership. So it just organizes all that information in a way that helps you present the evidence to your customers. Now, we also knew that we had to build in some level of intelligence here because a good attorney would not present bad evidence, right? And you don't oftentimes want your salespeople presenting certain things that might make you look bad. So we said we got to do it in a way that's intelligent, that always presents the vehicle in the best possible light. So if you happen to have your vehicle priced a little above the book value, we don't lie and change the book value. We just leave it out. You would leave it out when you're making that presentation, right? So automatically, if the price changes or the book value changes and it's going to make you look bad, we just leave it out. Right? And we intelligently look for the best combination of features of vehicles to compare to so that you're comparing against the closest set to yours in a way that presents your vehicle in the best possible light. Okay? And then when it comes to CARFAX, if you can change the settings in this thing. You can say, only show it if it's good. If it's bad, I'm not going to bring it up. If the customer brings it up, I'll show it to them. You can decide how much you want to include and how much intelligence you want us to apply. The whole idea is to package the evidence in the best possible way to make the case to your customer. I'm just going to scroll through this real quick so that you can see how it works. So we've just gathered up the features on the vehicle. We wrote a description on this vehicle. We pulled in the CARFAX information. We pulled in Kelly expert reviews on the vehicle to make the case for why would you buy this car. In the deal section, we automatically pulled in the book value and a few comps that you could see. Why would we explain that our car is priced right? And then ultimately, special information about our dealership. What is it that we do that's special? What do users say about us? So when you turn this product on, it's just an easy button to help you gather that evidence. Again, if you don't buy into the strategy, if you don't have a strategy, this is useless. You won't even use it. But if you look at the problem and you say, how can I help accomplish my goal of holding on to gross? And one piece of the strategy is to provide evidence to your customers to begin to replace negotiation with documentation. This might be a great tool. Maybe there's some other one out there that you want to use. It's not all about the software. It's about the strategy. When you get the strategy, you can find the right tools that will help you get the job done. So use the evidence that supports your value to replace negotiation with documentation. This leads us to our last two, culture and compensation. The culture, this one's really fun for me to look at a dealership, to look at a sales team and say, what is the culture, right? Because your goal with this piece is to create a culture around holding gross in your dealership. Who doesn't want that? Right? You want to have a culture on your sales team. Maybe you have a small team, maybe it's just you, but you want to create this culture around holding on to as much of that gross as possible. Okay? So the first thing we have to do when we're asking the question of culture is, and how we can change it, is look at the current culture. And we're going to talk about specifically your sales team. What is your current sales culture? Right? And so there's several questions we can ask ourselves to look deeply at the culture, the motivation behind our sales team, right? So just things like, who's the big dog? Who is that guy or that girl that everybody on the team wishes they were? They all want to be. And when they first started, they were introduced to that person as, well, this person will really help you out. They are consistently the salesperson of the month or whatever it is. Who's that special salesperson? Who is it that everyone wants to be like? What is the standard for success on your sales team? Who is it that receives all the praise, right? So we've asked ourselves, what is the current culture? And we understand it, and I think if we answer these questions honestly, we'll find that generally, as I mentioned before, the culture supports volume. And that's not bad. We don't want to sell less cars. We still want the volume, but we want to inject something else into that culture. We want them to want to be the guy or the girl who knows how to sell the car at the price that we've determined is the right price. They know how to hold on to the gross. So how do we do that? How do we begin to influence and impact that culture? And this is where we have a great little secret weapon, and those of you who are or have been salespeople, I think will relate to this. But the reality is that built deep into the heart and soul of every salesperson personality, maybe not every, but almost every salesperson personality is this little weakness that we can take advantage of to influence culture. In all of us salespeople, there is this tremendous desire to be praised publicly. I want my boss to tell everyone on my team how awesome I am. I want my name up on the board. I want everyone to know that I am the rock star on this team. That's really my motivation. Okay, I'm motivated by money. I want to make as much money as I can, but I really want to be the guy that everybody talks about. I want to be the one whose name's up on the board, right? It's true, right? Those of you who have been salespeople, you love a good pat on the back, especially if it's in front of a couple people who are competing for your job, right? Yeah, that's right. You know, I'm the guy. You love it. And that's our opportunity to influence that. So think back maybe, for those of you who haven't been salespeople, I'm sorry, but we're going to think back to our first sales job and just ask ourselves, is this true? And I'll just tell you about mine. So I got this like boiler room kind of sales job. I'm on the phone with a headset like glued to my head, free Red Bull for everyone, just dial away and make as many sales as you can, right? This is my job. And every week we would show up in the little foyer where we would have our sales meeting. And all of us sales guys are standing there waiting, and the boss comes walking down the stairs, and he's got a little wad of cash in his hand. And he starts telling this story about somebody on the team who had just stood out among the rest of us, who was a man amongst boys, right? And who just was a rock star. And what they did last week, I wish all of you could do. I wish you could all be a little bit more like. And he'd put his arm around one of us. And he'd hand that little wad of cash. And the cash was cool, but man, did it feel good to have that kind of praise in front of your team, right? And what did it do to the rest of us? Because it wasn't always, frankly, it wasn't me very often at all. And we went, man, I worked my butt off. Why didn't he say anything about me? I made 752 calls last week. Why didn't he say anything? And when we got over it, the frustration of not being the guy or the girl that got praised, we all admitted somewhere deep in our soul, I want to be that guy. I want to be her. I want that praise. And the funny thing is, it doesn't even matter what he was what the manager was talking about. If he was talking about what an awesome job Johnny did at wearing a suit every day, he was dressed like a rock star, and that's what I want out of all of you. And I'm putting my arm around it. He's the snappiest dresser in the room, and he gives him the wad of cash. We'd all run out and change our wardrobe, right? It was about lunch, the lunches they had. We'd all change our diet because we wanted to be the one who received the praise in front of everyone else. And so that's our secret weapon. Create a culture around holding gross in your dealership by changing what you recognize and praise. This is a subtle change, right? And it might take sitting down with a group of you together and talking about some ideas of how you could do this, because I haven't given you really the how, other than by changing what you recognize and praise. But how do you do that? And I would guess that in your break room, if you have a sales team, in your break room or your conference room, wherever you get together, there's some kind of board that says who the top salesperson is. It lists them out, and it's all based on how many cars they sold. Maybe it's based on how much gross they brought in, and I would push back on that a little bit, because every time I talk about this, somebody says, isn't the fact that they're paid by gross enough? Well, ask yourself this question, if you think that. Do they really control that? Right? The way you bought the car and how you reconditioned it compared to the market is what controlled how much gross you have. Sales guy typically didn't have anything to do with that. We get confused because we're thinking about that they had the ability to discount, right? Maybe going back and forth with you and the customer or whatever that process is, that they influence how much gross we get. No, they influence how much money we gave away, the price variance, right? So we got to figure out, how do we bring price variance into this board in our conference room or in our break room or wherever it is. How do we bring in new things like low price variance? And you all, I wish we were in a conference room, we could just share some ideas about how you could do that. Maybe you have a second board that talks about of the cars they sold, what's their average percentage of price variance. And we start to praise that as well. Or maybe we pull those things together so that on that one board that lists out who your top sales guy is, who everyone should want to be like, incorporates their ability to sell the car for what you're asking for it. So maybe one person sold 8 cars and one person sold 7, but 7's above 8 because they did what you asked them to do and they got very close to the price you listed on all 7 of their cars. And the other guy's such a good salesman, he sold you or the desk manager and gave away $5,000 out of those 8 cars. What do you want to praise? Maybe I'm wrong in what you want them to do, but whatever it is, you can influence it by changing what you recognize and what you praise. And finally, compensation. Change your sales comp plan to specifically reward low price variance. Salespeople love to be praised, but they also like to make money. And we all know, as I mentioned before, this might be the easiest way to change their activity, by changing how you pay them, right? But I would challenge you not to focus on this first. It may be the thing that gets the biggest impact of the 4 of these. But as we look back and say, what if our staff could believe in our pricing? Wouldn't that move the needle just a little bit? It's not going to dramatically change what happens on the gross, but wouldn't it move the needle just a little bit? If we change the way we use evidence to replace negotiation with documentation, wouldn't it move the needle just a little bit? And if we could really change that sales culture, we have a bunch of people who want to hold on to gross, because that's who they want to be, wouldn't it move the needle just a little bit? And then this issue of compensation put on top of all those things makes a much bigger difference, right? We're going to talk about all these things together here in a minute. But this one's simple. Change your comp plan to specifically reward low price variance. Now again, I wish we were sitting in a room together where we could share those ideas. And since we're not, I'm just going to share one quick idea with you. I don't know if you can read that. It looks like you should be able to read this. But it's just an example of a comp plan change, right? A look inside the 250 Club. This dealer, Adam Claiborne at Fernandez Honda, San Antonio, created the 250 Club to reward his sales team for minimizing price discounts with used vehicles. The idea for the $250 Club came out of his effort to increase front-end gross margins on used vehicle sales. Here's how it works. Salespeople earn points on every deal based on the difference between the vehicle's asking price and the transaction price. If there's no discount, a salesperson earns 250 points. If the discount is less than $250, it's small, the salesperson earns 125 points. If he discounted more than that, he gets no points at all, right? So at the end of the month, the 4 salespeople or 2 salespeople, whatever it is, the 4 salespeople with the highest points total earn $250 each and some other special prize, tickets to the Spurs game, whatever it is, right? The cool thing is, Claiborne credits this program for helping increase his store's monthly used vehicle front-end gross by $45,000. Salespeople like the program because it's a more fair way to compensate them than traditional gross-based pay plans. They know as well as you do that they didn't impact the real gross on the car, right? The only thing the salespeople really control is the discount, he says. They don't control how much I pay to acquire and recondition the car. We actually control the gross. So a guy may get 250 points when I only make $500. Another guy won't get any points if he discounts the car $500 and I make $3,500 on the deal. I was in the car right if I made that kind of margin, right? He didn't set me up for that. The salesperson's goal is presentation and presenting the evidence. Close the deal with the evidence at the price we're asking. Okay, so let's look back on these things real quick. What if your salespeople believe that the vehicle is priced right to begin with? They believe that the price you're asking is the right price, that the vehicle is worth every penny of what you're asking and then some. They're armed to the teeth with the evidence that supports that price and the strategy behind it. They can clearly communicate that with anybody. They feel motivated by the culture you've created to hold as closely as possible to that price, and they know that their paycheck will adequately reflect their efforts to stick as closely as possible to the listed price. You put all those things together, they all might move the needle a little bit, but you put them all together, and now we're cooking with peanut oil. Now we're talking, right? Now we've made a difference. We've slowed down or held back that wall on the retail side. And so we look at both of these 2 walls that are closing in, and I've given you a little bit of information that might help you build a strategy to hold those walls back, defend that margin, and improve your profitability. If you take those 4 keys on both those sides and build your own strategy, use your brain and figure out how to make this happen, and then begin to leverage the tools. Maybe you'll use our software, maybe you'll use someone else's, maybe you don't need technology, but build a strategy to hold back those walls and defend that growth. And I think if you take those things and you apply it, I have faith that with those things and with what you have between your ears, you have everything you need to get the job done and stop those walls. Thank you very much. And did we want to do questions, or did I take all the time? Okay. If there's any questions you guys have, I'd love to answer them, and we'll be around today. My guys are here in our booth there. If you have any other questions, you can come by there as well.
Thank you for your excellent presentation. It was wonderful.
Thank you.
Curious how your products work. I see it working at the higher end cars, trucks. How about the lower end, the $4,000 to $6,000 cars?
So I would say that question is really, you're going to dig into the culture, and I'm just giving you what I would do to try to solve that problem. Hopefully it's helpful. The culture of the people buying the $6,000 car. You want to look at that and ask yourself, are they comparing the same things that a person buying a $10,000 or $15,000 or $20,000 car are comparing? And if not, then bring in the things they're comparing, right? I guess it's all just about acknowledging that they already have the data and showing them that you know that too and you've done the homework as well. So if they're looking and they're comparing based on payment or something else, bring that into whatever tool you use to present the evidence. Okay, and we're working on bringing that in to AutoVisor as well. So I think it can work, but you just got to ask the question the right way and dig into the culture.
Have you found with a lot of the dealers or the bridging gap between the wholesale acquisition and the dropping retail prices that most of your dealers that are adapting this high-turn philosophy are moving more towards reconditioning type systems where they're purchasing vehicles that require more reconditioning in order to shave some of that gap in the difference?
I've seen that more on the same kind of price range that this other gentleman was mentioning, as far as kind of looking at that lower end price range. That may be the only advantage because it's so extremely competitive on a clean $5,000, $6,000, $8,000 car, right? So you may have to find a different approach. But I still think that the way to try first is to adopt some of these principles. Expand your reach, improve your efficiency, right? Use the tools that are out there and see if you can't find those unique needle in a haystack buys, right? And maybe it even includes searching Craigslist or something else to find those unique, really good buys.
One last question back here.
Okay.
Some of the software that I've seen where, you know, you're looking at a car and it'll pull up those cars on AutoTrader, cars.com, so you can see what the pricing is. A lot of them I've seen, they just show that year of that car. Does your program maybe take, you know, let's say I'm looking at a 2008 car. Will it pull up the 2007s and 2009 so I can get a variance between the year before and the year after on that pricing?
Yeah, so there are some ways to adjust that. If we're talking about Auction Genius, for example, there's components. There's an app store, and you can install these different components. There's one from cars.com and one from AutoTrader, and we do build in the ability to expand and contract kind of your search criteria, whether it's how far away you want to look or how many years you want to look at. And you can manually adjust that on the fly as well. I get that, especially, you know, as you get a little bit further back in years, people are looking at a range of vehicles. So I certainly get that that's desirable. And it's all about trying to create the software so that you can expand and contract those parameters. I think that's it. So I want to thank you guys again for having me. It's been awesome to be a part of NIADA for the last 5 years, and thank you for letting me come up and share with you.